And we are extremely excited today because we have with us the king of Christian contrarians, the master of arcane esoterica, the lord of Nephilim conspiracy theories and royal bloodlines, the master himself,
the great, the incomparable Gary Wayne.
Gary Wayne, baby. Give it up. Yep.
Welcome, and thank you for being a guest. How are you?
I am doing just fine, and so happy to be with you today, and really looking forward to the conversation today. I'm not sure I can live up to all the different titles that were just assigned to me.
You already have, sir. You already have.
Yeah. Mr. Wayne, if you don't mind, would you just give like a intro as to you and the Genesis 6 conspiracy and maybe a little background as to what motivated you to write this book?
Well, yeah, it's a story in itself for sure. So I'll just say a little bit about myself first. So I'm not a theologian. I did not go to seminary school. I'm not university educated. Everything I know and write about, I'm self-taught. And so I got into biblical prophecy kind of through a challenge because I was sitting around and talking with my brother and a friend, and I'm like 20 or 21 years old at that time, and we get a little bit tipsy, and one of them says to me, you know, if you've got enough courage, if you've got enough guts, there's a book you should read. I'm going, well, I'm not sure. I've read a lot of books. I'm not sure which book they're referring to. I said, well, what's the name of the book? They said, The Late Great Planet Earth. I said, oh, that's an interesting title. And it's by a prophecy writer named Hal Lindsey, who I think, did extraordinary work. And one of the pioneers, certainly, of the modern age for prophecy. Whether or not people totally agree with him or not, the work he did was just super quality and a superhuman being from everything I know about him. So I said, why would I want to read this book? And they said, well, do you know anything about the false prophet? Never heard of him. And they said, what about Antichrist? Well, I've heard of that. They said, well, that's the partner. And so if you're really into something that is going to scare the socks off of you, read this book. If not, then don't go near it. So, the next day I'm thinking that was a pretty bizarre conversation because they were talking a lot about it. So I went out and I bought the book. And it scared the socks off of me. And so
I got to read this book.
I have to, and I had read it in about 1980 or maybe 79. And he had it out for probably 10 years by then. So it was already a well-established book. So I wanted to verify what he said because I'm a contrarian. I don't accept what anybody writes or says unless I verify it myself. And I'm going, you know what? For everything I can tell, and I'm not an expert on the Bible, is that he isn't taking things out of context, from what I can tell, and it seems to be making some sense. And so I started to research prophecy, and I started to dialogue everything and put it down in files, all the different sort of prophecy themes, because I wanted to know whether or not this was legitimate or not. And as I'm doing this, I run across this interesting verse in very early on in my research, Genesis 6, 1-4, where it talks about these giants, and your head kind of spins. And I'm going, I'm not touching that. I'm not sure what that's all about. But
this is some Narnia stuff,
Yeah, but giants sort of keep coming up over and over, as do angels and demons and things like that. So. I'm thinking that's really kind of interesting. And so after, about 15 years or so of just getting my understanding of prophecy together and the major sort of dynamics of the Bible, and just binders and binders of notes and correlations of things, different narratives and prophecy themes, I thought, well, maybe I can connect. Maybe I can write a short book. Maybe I could write a book that will connect prophecy to prehistory, because it seems like so much is defined in prophecy and prehistory. And for me, if you don't understand prehistory, you can't properly understand the full scope and meaning of prophecy, because so much of it's defined in that. that might be a good idea, because I got like 12 or 15 books in my head that, that I would like to write.
Spoken like a true writer.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I decided, and I wrote the first 10 chapters and went really quite quickly.
Yeah.
And then I thought, you know what, since I was knee high, I was a history buff and I was a mythology buff. And I knew so much about that I understood there was tremendous parallels with all of the legends and mythologies and the religions around the world, viewed through a polytheist lens versus a monotheist lens, but telling what I thought was pretty much an identical story. So I thought, okay, well, I'll do maybe another section and I'll add those parallels so that people will understand that this is just not a biblical concept. Like, this is a worldwide history, and it's important to understand it. And also understand how it might connect into prophecy. And then when you get into the mythologies, you're getting into the legends, which bring in the religions. And so everything in the mythologies around the world, doesn't matter whether it's Greek or it's Sumerian or it's Egyptian or it's the Quiché Maya or whomever, is based in the religion. So then I thought, well, I don't know enough about those religions, so I have to read about all of these other religions. And then you get
Once
into
you start down the dark path,
oh, you're down the rabbit hole. And then that leads you into the mystery schools. And the mystery schools sent me down rabbit holes for about 10 years in terms of secret societies and everything else that it leads into. And so that's a little bit who I am, is somebody who just wanted to tell a small story, and somewhere along the road to the Colosseum, it turned into this massive book. And I edited over 300 pages out of it just to get it down to a size to publish it. I mean, you could write forever on these connections and things. And so I wanted to make it as concise, and it's a very, very long book, but I knew that after I got about halfway in, like, this is going to be difficult for people to read, because you can't read it quickly because it has so much information. And I actually sort of put out a warning, just as a joke, that if you try and speed read it, you're going to blow brain cells, because you just can't take in that amount of information.
I tried to do that. Yeah, that is exactly how I felt.
You throw a piston rod in your brain.
I'm just going to skim over this chapter. I'm just going to skim through this chapter.
No, you're not.
It short-circuited.
Yeah,
I was like, I don't have a clue what's going on here.
Every chapter is loaded with information, so I wrote it in a way that every chapter is a mini story, and there isn't a chapter longer than about 6 or 7 pages. So average short chapters, and that chapter leads into the next chapter, and that information will come up continually as the book unfolds.